Sammy Houtsinen. I might be wrong, but I think you said in one of your videos that sexuality, excluding homosexuality, isn't that big of a deal in Scientology. I finished Jenna Miscavige Hill's book today, and it really painted a picture of sexuality being a huge thing in Scientology, especially if you did out 2D or anything related to premarital sex seemed to be a very bad thing. P.S. Is that Age of Empires on your computer desktop? Okay, well, there's a difference between sexual control and conduct in the Sea Org, the Sea Organization, versus regular public Scientologists or staff members. It's a whole different level of control. And I think when I was talking about this before, I was talking about it more from the aspect of the public Scientologist versus like in the Sea Org. Sexuality in the Sea Org is rigidly controlled, very tightly controlled. And you're gonna find like anything having to do with any sexual activity is totally verboten unless you're married. So any premarital sexual activity, anything like that they could be construed as heavy petting would be, no good, and you get in a lot of trouble if you do something that is considered a violation of that, and that's what's called out 2D. In Scientology, the second dynamic, or 2D, is a term used to describe all sexual activity, sexual function, family, the family unit, having kids, all of that is encompassed by this term they call the second dynamic. So out 2D means violating the rules of the second dynamic or doing something that is not prescribed behavior according to Scientology rules and regulations, especially in the Sea Org, where they have those rules and regulations. Outside of the Sea Org, they don't have those rules the same way. It's kind of a different, it becomes a cultural thing, sort of a group agreement as to what is or isn't okay. Obviously adultery is not okay. But masturbation amongst, in the Scientology public world is not as big of a crime or as big of a problem as in the Sea Organization, where masturbation is absolutely not acceptable behavior at all, and you can get in a lot of trouble if they catch you or find out that you have been, doing anything like that, much less if you go extramarital or anything, or premarital, anything, And the attitude is very conservative, very sort of 1950s, sort of I've described it as a sort of a Leave It to Beaver attitude, very like, they're not into, in the Sea Organization, if you are having like wild, crazy sex with your wife and it's noisy or something, you're going to hear about it from everybody. They're going to write knowledge reports on you, and you're going to be seeing the ethics officers like, dude, it's not, no. Because you're not supposed to, here's the whole thing on it, okay? I mean, all that's very interesting, but in the Sea Organization, the whole reason for all of that is because you're not supposed to have your attention on anything other than clearing the planet and doing the job. And the job and the group are everything, and everything else takes a back seat to that, including your wife or your husband. And of course, when you're in the Sea Org, you can't have kids. So it's kind of like, instead of looking at this from the viewpoint of all these rules and regulations, instead, if you really want to get the right idea of how the Sea Org approaches this, look at it from the point of view that anything going on in a person's life other than doing their job is not unimportant. What they call it having other fish to fry is an old expression. You have other fish to fry. It means you've got something else that you think is more important than what you're supposed to be considering important. And that's how the Sea Org deals with sex and anything having to do with sex. And they also consider that it is somewhat mentally what they call restimulative. In other words, you start thinking about sex or engaging in sex or sexual activity, and it stirs up all these pictures and can kind of be very distractive to you, and again goes back to not being able to do your job. So that's kind of the simplest explanation I can give for the attitude towards sex and sexuality in the Sea Org. And yes, that is an Age of Empires game on my computer.